In the meantime, before we start, I would like to just talk a little bit about our initiative called HR Connect, which is basically a HR forum that was started a year and a half ago, which collects and unifies the iGaming industry into one strong voice. This HR forum is represented by 18 of the major organizations here in Malta, and we consistently talk about the shared challenges that the industry is facing here in Malta, and particularly now during the COVID-19 crisis. The industry is meeting every week to discuss what the different organizations are handling the situation, and how to go about it, and what potential solutions and so forth can be there. So all three of my lovely panelists today are members of this forum, and it's been great getting to know all of you guys through this forum. So without further ado, I would like everyone to introduce themselves. So Heidi, if you would like to start today.
Hello, everyone. Hello, lovely panelists. Many of you have already met me. I'm Heidi Lofthus, Chief People Officer at ComeOn Group since 1.5 years back. Started my HR career in Malta, actually, over 10 years ago, setting up Redbet, an operator. And now I do HR full-time with a 5 times bigger company, being ComeOn. And I'm super happy to be part of the HR Connect networking group as well.
Okay, Marie, would you like to continue?
Yes, I'm Marie. I'm the Chief People Officer at CHRO Gaming. I have been in HR for quite a few years, and I've worked in quite a few different industries. I joined CHRO Gaming 2.5 years ago, so CHRO has been the first company I've worked with within the gaming industry. And this is where I've also met this lovely community of HR people, and we also have a little smaller community, Pierre, which we call the HR Spinola.
Okay, the subgroup.
No, there's a subgroup to that.
And Fiona's actually in it, even if she's not in Spinola Park together with her.
Okay. Great, Fiona.
Yeah, so similar background to Mari's. I've worked in HR for 20-something years, losing count now because I don't want to actually keep track of that. Been at CatenaMedia now, again, first gaming company that I'd actually worked in. I worked in a lot of other industries previously, and been with Catena now for coming up to 5 years. And yes, thank you for including me in this Spinola group, even though we're not in Spinola, we're based in Xira.
Amazing, guys. And I'm Pierre. I'm the managing director and co-founder of iGaming Next and ambassador event. So I will be moderating here today for the lovely panelists. So shall we jump straight into it? We have a very interesting topic today, lessons learned managing remote workforces. And I feel like currently we are kind of undergoing the world's biggest experiment in remote working, and I think that we will have a lot of studies that will be coming out from this when we get out of this crisis, would say. But right now we are right in it, and we are right in the middle of this shift now to all of a sudden from one day to the other, moving the entire workforces for like major organizations into working remotely. So my first question to the panel is, what have you learned so far managing your entire workforces, having to work remotely? And what has surprised you so far? So I would like to start with Mary.
Okay, so my first take on it is remote or not, you can still do whatever you need to do to keep a workforce engaged. So it has required taking a bit of a different strategy on a number of things. So if I had to look at the budget I was originally working with, now my budget is reallocated in in a different way, right? We're not at the office, we're not spending the money at the office, but there is still an investment that we can do remotely. I've also, personally, I have been fighting for giving people the option for remote working for many, many years throughout the different roles that I have had. And over the years, I've found many different skeptics who have said, no, remote working doesn't work, and so on and so forth. So, you know, it's very surprising to see those skeptics finally getting the buy-in. I think they've had to experience it themselves firsthand to actually say, okay, this can potentially work. But also, finally, what really surprised me the most is that a lot of our people have asked, and people generally ask for the flexibility to have remote working. But through feedback that we've sent out this week, we had a survey last week, and through the feedback we've seen coming in, people really miss being around people. So they want the remote working flexibility, they want to have the option there, but neither of them, I would say a good 95% of our workforce want to be around people and in people's physical presence. So that was actually quite surprising to see.
Interesting. Well, you mentioned that like a lot of the skeptics have now turned around to say they are warming up to the idea of remote work. But have you had any pushback?
Not really, no, we haven't had pushback. As a company, we were quite used to having the option of working remotely. Some teams more than others, because, for example, if I had to look at our developers, they much prefer actually being in the office. They see a lot more value in being at the office. So it wasn't actually real pushback. It's more of a preference that some people have to actually working remotely. But at the end of the day, now the situation is what it is. In Sweden, for example, because we have offices there, the approach has been a lot more relaxed, I would say, when compared to the approach that other countries have taken. But yesterday, the government actually announced that whoever has the possibility to work from home, they have to work from home. So yesterday, in fact, we sent out an email there, and people have now, drastically reduced from actually being at the office. Interesting.
Heidi, what has surprised you so far the most with shifting your workforce remotely?
So we did. When did we start having the calls? Like 3 weeks ago on a Friday, we did our first testing for the entire organization, like a planned testing. That went surprisingly good. There were a few hiccups, some VPN questions, but nothing that couldn't be sorted on the same day. So after that, in the afternoon, we announced that now everyone can work from home. So basically, without having planned for this over the years, because we also, just like CHRO, come from a mentality that we should be in the office and work together. We could start from day one with all our working from home activities. So, and this is managed, like the maintenance and setup of this is based for over 550 people. We have a tech internal IT department that is relatively quite small, and I haven't heard of any hiccups so far. So we're probably up some 100% still in terms of uptime after 3 weeks having continued this exercise. And then I'm not surprised because this is actually planned, but I'm very grateful, and I think it's a continuous good lesson to continue learning. Preparation and foundation is key. And for my team, the people division, setting the foundation has been this year's sort of mantra. And that shows that sort of enables us being very able to to go off, not only technical like platforms and infrastructural wise, but also we already sign all our contracts online. We don't have any kinds of paper from old company times back in the days. Nothing, everything is now stored online in our shared folders. HR system, like we can, just like Mari says, we can literally do everything from home. Onboarding online hasn't proven to be any difficulties at all. But obviously, it's the human lack of, the human touch. You're actually in the same room, the brainstorming. So lesson learned: continue planning, continue preparing. Surprise. I'm amazed by the adaptivity that people in general, but what I see from my team, ComeOn, that we really managed to just continue from one day to another, but all in a different scenarios.
Yeah, it's quite interesting what you're saying. That, I mean, in general, it seems like the world is heading more towards like cloud solutions and kind of shared everything. And if we go back like 10 years, for example, would this have been much more difficult?
I'm trying to think, what phone did I have 10 years ago?
Yes, in a
would it
word,
have been
yes.
possible?
It would have
even
been
have been possible?
To start with, let's take it locally. In Malta, up until like 2 years ago, maybe, we were always told that from a legal perspective, contracts need to be signed on a piece of paper. Only from, I would say, 18 months ago, our company lawyer, I had this conversation with our company lawyer, and she's like, go for it. If we have a problem in court, we'll face it at that point, but we're in 2019. We should be fine to have online signed contracts. It was the only thing holding us back, but I think it's that's pretty sorted, and there's been more companies going onto fully online when it comes to all people-related admin.
10 years ago, Malta, 10 years ago, Malta quite often had internet and electricity disruptions more than we do today. So quite often we did actually used to work from home, but due to a different reason, sort of, we took the support team home over lunch.
I think, Pierre, it's difficult to say that it wouldn't, to say it would be impossible. I don't think, kind of we can. Obviously 10 years ago, if this had happened, people would have had to find a way, but it would have been a lot more difficult, that's for sure. And I think it was a lot easier and a lot more seamless to do it this time, as both, kind of Heidi and Mari were saying, having setups where things are signed electronically, and we're also, obviously, most companies, especially within the gaming space, they're global. So because you're dealing with offices in other locations, you already have Zoom set up. You already have, or other, Skype or whatever other systems and things that you use, and you already have HR tools, and you have, virtual meetings, and you have a lot of things, and people reporting into people that are based in different locations already. So that in itself, I think, helped with this process. It wasn't such a drastic change for a lot of people.
No, it's true. And in general, Fiona, for you over at the CatenaMedia, how has this transition gone? And is there anything that surprised you so far?
I mean, again, it's, as I said, it's been quite seamless, which is nice. Obviously, it was a decision that we made very, very quickly, as I'm sure most people did, almost from one day to the next. So, kind of we did learn that we, probably a little bit more time planning, and had we known that we were going to be out for quite so long, people would have taken, more comfortable chairs and monitors and things with them. We're trying to sort those out now. But I think that the biggest surprise that I've had is just we've seen engagement increase. So it's not even being a case of trying to maintain, kind of the engagement and things that we've had. We've actually seen it increase across the whole organization and across, everywhere. That's been a really, really cool surprise. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. That's kind of, it's interesting because the main argument, I would say, the main traditional argument against the remote workforces, I think, is is the fear of productivity levels going down? And how do you measure productivity when your staff is working remotely? So on that note, so like you're saying, Fiona, you feel that it's the opposite. You feel that the productivity levels in general is going up.
Yes, I mean, it's still early days for productivity. We're in week 3 in Malta. Serbia, our office went out a little bit earlier. The UK now, I think they're in the kind of more the second week. We are seeing increases, kind of in some productivity, but we've got a lot of other things that we still yet to measure. But we've seen increase in collaboration, communication, and engagement, and generally, obviously, seeing increases across those. Then that translates into productivity. That it is a trend that we're seeing.
Cool. Mario, do you feel it's more difficult to measure productivity in the current climate? How would you know if your employees are putting in the hours, or is even the hours important? Is it more important what is the output from your employees?
Yeah, for us it has always been We've always had a system where we've had our projects, our deadlines on projects, our KPIs, which we measured, which we measure regularly. And if I had to look at deadlines of projects which had to be launched, nothing has stopped and everything has continued and all the deadlines have been met. So we haven't had any problems in terms of, people needing the time to, obviously we all need to adjust, we all needed to adjust. As Heidi and Fiona said, this all happened within a day. We took the decision between one day and the next. So it was fast. But I think if it's something with this industry and the way it works, there's a high sense of agility. And we're used to taking very fast decisions. And this was just another one. I really don't feel that productivity has been impacted. One-to-ones have continued in our case, team meetings have continued, stand-ups in the morning have continued. So as long there is that constant communication, as long as there are the right tools, the right communication tools in place, then I don't think that companies should suffer in that case. And, I've been speaking to people within different industries as well, and the companies who have been suffering the most are the ones which didn't have the right communication tools in place. And same as Fiona, we've seen an increase in engagement. I wonder, Fiona, though, do you think it's a honeymoon period with this remote working, which is like getting people excited still?
I mean, possibly. We are in the early stages of it. As kind of, I think you mentioned earlier as well, where people are actually saying that they do miss being in the office. So I think the longer that we go through this, and then the other thing to think about as well is that this is forced remote working. This isn't a decision that, kind of we've all sat down and thought about, is this the right thing to do for our business? This is because of obviously external factors that are outside anyone's control, that are really scaring people. So I think at the moment, what comes in the future and how engaged people are, we have some input and control over, but then there's also so many other external factors that we have to consider, with how we're managing our people and how we're communicating with them, because there's so many different emotions going through this right now too.
Yes. In the survey we sent out to our employees last week, we asked them, one of the questions was, are your goals clear? And 99% of the employees said yes. And I think those are, the foundations that Heidi was speaking about before, those are so important, because if the goals are clear and there is a constant communication with their managers, then productivity shouldn't hurt in that case. The only feedback that I've had from maybe one manager is that he feels that things are a little bit slower when communicating. Obviously, there isn't, when you're in the same office with somebody, there aren't those conversations which happen on the go, or if those conversations were to happen, they have to be now a little bit more structured and we have to plan for them. So that is what's lacking, I think. What lacks from being in the actual office.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what about you, Heidi? Do you concur?
I do concur. I mean, some departments obviously is easier to measure than others. So task-based tech has actually improved. They have, from what I heard this morning, our tech departments have managed to finish off more projects than previously. So they're on the up. But this is also one of our workforces that is very much pro working from home. Support, payment and fraud can obviously also measure. So we see no incline here. And this, I don't know if this is sort of very much engaged based either, because it's obviously, it's measurable. It's the amount of work that you can do at the office, you can still do at home. So I think the engagement part, keeping people sort of doing their job, these are not the areas to sort of identify engagement. Disengagement, yes, but from my area, like HR and PX, people experience, working with people culture, offices, etc. We are very much in the here and now, engaging people, sending out information, sharing webinars. We have a part of our own website where we log in. That's called the ComeOn Cares. That we share a lot of information about sort of mental health as well. So we've been saying this before as well. I think it's a bit too early to sort of measure our unmeasurable departments' productivity. At this point, we see no decline, and we see no revenues being hurt by this so far. Question is more, is this engagement going to last forever? What do we do when it actually starts dipping? So that's where me and my team needs to be extra on top. But I would see it more of, when the machinery works, all our departments and divisions are part of the full machinery. And as long as it works, we see no harm. So there's everyone plays a cog of importance. Did we lose Pierre?
I think so.
we have.
Should we take action ourselves? We have a question on the side.
There is.
I think he's back.
Okay. I should be back again, I think.
Pierre, I see that we have a question on site.
Yes.
Are you the question?
Yes, I am. I was just I was going to bring it up actually. So a question from Ulrik, who my chat box is really tiny, so I will have to read it really slow, line by line here. Okay, but Heidi, Ulrik is saying, "Hello, Heidi and everyone. Thank you for this fantastic initiative." So Heidi, you are mentioning the lack of touch among people. Should a remote work scenario become the standard option, what would you do to favor people's connections? Team building solutions? Would you consider on-premise team building benefits?
I mean, ComeOn has traditionally had annual or biannual trips for the entire company. Now we're quite big. So every location that we have is a company itself. We have offices in more than 10 countries. So for all the company to sort of meet and greet for the sake of the human touch, I think that's too vast. Country-wise, yes. To be honest, I don't think that ComeOn is a place that will do 100% working from home at all times, and then occasionally we meet up to get to know each other. So should we hypothetically do that? People should have a chance to get to meet, definitely. in some way or the other, at least the people that you're working closely with or the people that you share location with.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, as we are now going through this COVID-19 crisis, and we are experimenting with the remote workforces, we're learning that things are working out pretty well so far, at least. And that begs the question, like Ulrich is touching on a little bit, that is remote working going to be the new standard, let's say? Will there be, let's say, maybe there will be a hybrid that people will be able to go to the office if they want, but it's not really that. It's not really a requirement, so to say. It's not really the standard. So, what do you guys think? If we go into the future, what would be your predictions in how this will develop? Will remote working become the new standard? Will offices be? How will an office look like in the future?
I think that it's already happening. If you look at the US, a lot of companies are set up remotely, and in Europe it's growing as well. I always say when we're looking at market salaries for developers, we can't look at market salaries for developers within one country, because when you look at developers, a good number of them prefer to work remotely and decide to go for these remote working companies. So I think the world is already moving into that direction. And yes, I keep thinking, and I keep telling my team as well, let's think of those remote working companies and how they keep employees engaged on a permanent basis, because that is how they are set up. That is how they start from day one, and that is how their life cycle, their journey within the company goes. That is how it goes. So even when it comes to team building, yes, in an ideal scenario, you do get a meet and greet, but the situation is what it is right now. That can't really happen. We personally had our company meetup planned for June. We had to obviously move that, unfortunately, but we do have some remote team building events planned, as I know some of the other companies already have been working on these things already. We're also setting up a virtual office where people can log in and see who there is in the office, and maybe, I don't know, take a break with a person virtually. We've had people lunching together, and yes, it is a reality. I think you can make it work. As a company, I very much doubt that will go fully remote, as Heidi is saying. We still believe in the presence and what you can achieve through that. Having said that, we have had quite a few people, we were talking just before this started, we have had quite a few people who wanted to leave Malta, wanted to leave Sweden in the past 2 years. And we have kept them with the company, and they're working from wherever, from their home country. So yes, I mean, the option is there and will continue to be there. But as a company, we likely won't go fully remote. But it's definitely a trend which is growing.
I would,
Sorry, Heidi.
I would also say, like, if productivity would have been like the technical support and platforms and productivity, if that would have been the obstacle fully, then we would already be working fully from home. All the companies that would be able to do that. That's a bridge that we already crossed years ago. But matching the individual's need and where he or she performs the best, be it in-house, in his or her own house or their own office, also staying in their own country. I mean, not having to travel and relocate to Malta or to London or to Stockholm or Poland or any of our bigger locations, but actually sort of identifying, that will probably be the main force the driving force for us to find people working from another location, to find skills elsewhere, especially as we're getting increasing challenges in terms of bringing especially third country nationals over to Malta, depending on skills, obviously. But this kind of nature is not actually helping, but sooner forcing us or helping us to take a decision to sort of go working from home.
Yeah.
We already have quite a lot of consultants working from home, so this is areas that we don't see any issues with.
No, exactly. And yeah, just to kind of off the back of what both Heidi and Murray have said, our whole US business is already remote. We don't have an office in the US. We acquired the business there a couple of years ago. There was 30-something people. They were remote, scattered around everywhere. We had every intention of opening up an office. We've since doubled, more than doubled the size of that team, and we still don't have an office because we just don't see the need to. They're functioning brilliantly remote, and it does mean that we can hire the skills and the individuals wherever they may be. But I think it comes down to the type of business and the type of team and kind of the type of people and the individuals. Even as Heidi said, we are seeing that a lot of people are missing being in the office because they can't bounce ideas off each other. So there's a lot of functionality that we do have with being remote, and there's more effort that you need to put into a lot of that. But there's still some things that are missing. But then ultimately it comes down to the roles. Are there roles that people need to physically be in an office? Or are there others that don't? And I think that's going to be, it will definitely become more of the way of the future. There will be a lot more businesses that are completely remote and a lot more companies that have a lot more remote teams and individuals. But will it become fully remote and kind of all offices obsolete? No, I don't think so. Not in our lifetime anyway.
Question, Fee. In terms of like the individual output, that's obviously measurable. Like the managers are responsible for the people in their team, setting shorter goals to make them accountable, etc. But teamwork, how do you see? Now I don't know exactly what roles you have in US, but like again, the individual's performance, that is not so strange or scary to me, but the entire group's sort of working together, do you have to, what is then most important, like finding the skills or the actual being able to cooperate? Because then obviously the culture and the cooperation skills are very important, because that otherwise it can damage the whole team.
Yeah, it's a lot more emphasis on the managers. From an individual perspective, it's really about skills, and then from the manager's perspective, kind of across this industry, I'm sure you've seen it as well. There has been kind of a lot of green managers, people doing a job well, and then they get promoted. But what we tend to find is we need to hire managers who have strong management experience, and we then build on that more. But because they're the ones that really need to set the structure and the routines and the communications and just manage the expectations of the team. That's one of the things that we've really seen, is that if the manager and as well as the team and as well as the company sets the expectations very clearly up front, and expectations on everything, expectations on how to communicate and when and who, and expectations on kind of what the structure is, and even as you were both saying, what the goals are and the KPIs and the targets. And if that's all really clear, then that is critical, and a lot of that has to come from the managers.
Great. We have another question from our viewers. From Jill Taylor, she's asking, hello everyone, great to be a part of this. I was wondering what advice or tested ways you're offering to support the parents in your business, those who are juggling working and looking after children due to the COVID-19 situations. I see, Mari, I see you have a great smile on your face. You have kids at home, so maybe you can answer from your own experience.
Yes, I have two very young kids, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I can say it's not easy. It's I definitely can say that. What we have done, and I see it even from conversations and the attitude, the approach that our CEO has, firstly with me, who's a mother, and I also have a full-time job. He doesn't expect me, if his calls me or he messages me, there's no expectation that I need to pick up there and then. I generally do, but the expectation isn't there from his end. He is completely understanding of that fact. And we have also communicated that approach. We have also taken that approach with the rest of the company. There are quite a few people who have children within our company, and you know, a lot of us have to juggle with a full-time job, responsibility, homeschooling, keeping the children alive and safe. And it's a lot, especially when you know, we're a bit limited as to how much help we bring into our houses, because you never know where people are in their free time. So that's the support. It's more of a mindset that we set, and not having those high expectations of somebody that would put so much unnecessary pressure to a certain extent. You know, if there's a deadline or something needs to be delivered, then yes, we need to make our arrangements, you know, as we always do. But with everything else, we are giving people the flexibility to work out their working day. And that's worked very well for us so far.
Yeah, I think that's the key word, Mari, is flexibility. Flexibility and understanding. You know, there's no way. Again, I have young kids as well. I have a 7-year-old and then an almost 2-year-old, and we can't expect parents to be online, you know, kind of in the hours that they would be in the office. We can't expect them to deliver the same amount of work that they would, you know, kind of if they were at the office either. So it is that flexibility, understanding. We've communicated that to all of our managers. A lot of them do have kids that are in the same situation as well. And then, you know, kind of and we've just said to people as well to be really open and honest in what they can do, what they can't do. And it's the only way to manage it right now.
Well, Heidi, do you have anything to add to this? Or?
We are not flexible at all. Flexible to the extreme, I would say. I mean, again, as well, I'm a mother of 2, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, soon to be 7. And they obviously take more time that when you're home with them, they believe that you're actually there to be with them, but you're not. So it's a juggle, you know, in between your work and your other work. Sort of you go in between your 2 different personas. So flexibility is the key word here. Swap hours, you know, move, like that's entirely open. We have not communicated anything in terms of like an official email. We are doing that tomorrow to our managers, saying like the common ComeOn approach, which is always very including and very open and supportive, is basically the flexibility. But also then we have in Sweden we have VAB, which could be used for these instances as well. Then in Malta and our other locations we have 3 days of dependent leave, which is basically people that depend on you. You have a sick mother or you have a sick child or even a child in your household that is in need of you. So use these 3 days, split them up 2 hours at a time if you want per day, to just sort of be able to sort of take a good breather. Obviously, we can't see in the long run that your output is damaged too much of this because you're only using this leave. But sort of a give and take, you get the job done, you get the job done. And when this is happening, when your partner is at home or not at home minding the children, I mean, then that's not what we're after here. What is also what we discussed today that will be part of this communication to the managers is like, again, we are an including organization. Include the children. Like if they want to sit in your lap, just have an understanding that this person is a parent and the child is happy when they sit in the lap. just let that child sit there and be, we are in our own houses now. I don't know how many houses I have seen, kitchen. Oh, I didn't think that you were a green person. We are actually living in people's realities now. So, and the kids are very, very much part of that. So flexibility, we have some extra hours, and obviously people can take leave. I mean, that's just part of their rights. If there is anyone, and then I'm probably talking about future moving forwards now, if anyone feels like this, I can't cope with it, then obviously they have the right to reduce their hours. So we're very supportive.
Fiona and Heidi, can I ask you a question? Because you mentioned leave now, Heidi. Do you foresee a problem of people not taking vacation leave now because of the circumstances we're in?
We see it happen all the time. So I raised this a couple of weeks ago, then it was very early to say. But I mean, the public holiday, I'm already at home. Why should I work this why should I be off? I can just work, so I get another vacation day. I was sick, but actually I can manage to work because I still don't have to go into the office. So we see that difference or a change in behavior, definitely. And we have we have not set yet any sort of direct, this is how we're going to go on about it. What we're leaning towards is having some kind of communication out to everyone to take at minimum 7 days before the 1st or end of June, just to sort of get a little bit bunch of work days being off, be it 1 day a week, or take a couple of extra days off over Easter like you normally would anyways. But then ultimately I think that we would just have to look at what we actually allow carry over for next year, etc.
Yes, because what worries me also is people's mental health,
Yes. Absolutely. We've thought about that as well in terms of leave, and I mean, it's twofold. People need to take a break, and even though you're at home, and like you said, Heidi, you just kind of go, oh well, I'm here, I may as well just keep working. But people still need to take some time out, even if they can't leave their house. So we will probably look at some forced leave situations, depends how long this goes for, and then also when we come back to the office, hopefully at some point, then if everyone has, kind of saved up all their leave, and then they then have to try and use that before year end, then no one will be there to do anything. So yeah, definitely a situation that we're monitoring it. It's still, start of April, but I think as it progresses, it becomes more of an issue.
And it's an interesting topic on the mental health, actually, that I would like us to talk a little bit more about. As you know, in HR Connect, it has been a hot potato that we discussed the mental health implications that is sudden isolation can potentially have on people who are not used to having to stay at home, or they are not used to their local bar or restaurant or whatever. Nothing is open at the moment. How are you guys tackling these concerns, particularly because you are not in touch directly with your staff? How do you monitor that your staff is healthy? Fiona.
Take it. Wait.
We got some good tips and tricks from the Richmond Foundation seminar that you held the other day, last week. So I'm losing days myself. So where I actually put forward the question on how can we make use of our first mental health first aiders. Again, this is now I'm sort of thankful for us having in all our locations prepared. We do have mental health first aiders in all our locations.
What are mental first aiders for the ones?
It's basically so you need to have first aiders. You need to have X amount of first aiders per 50 people that work in the office to be able to sort of emergency evacuate. As mental health is a burgeoning and growing issue and situation that we're talking about. I don't know when this was first sort of coined, but nowadays modern companies have mental first aiders. So these are basically not for you to have to go to HR or to your manager and create a weird, like be 100% open with. You can go to these educated people that have been going through a course to learn to see the signs, changes in patterns.
Just and they are your own employees.
Exactly. Sort of, what do you call them? Fire souls that want to be there. Like, luckily we have people that are, really want to sort of help other people. So these people have been trained just for this. And this was part of our year's plan. And luckily we did it in January and February in all our locations. So that was just pure luck, and good job to my team having it sorted. But we are emphasizing, go to these people. And if you don't want to talk to your manager, you don't want to talk to your HR. Now the question will probably come, how do we help the mental health first aiders, listening into others, but also minding themselves? Our PX team, the people experience team, are often sending out, just to be in touch, simple little check-in as well. Send your emoji, like you're feeling for the day. And it's a good sort of, then you see a map. If 10 people are super happy, but there are a few that sends a sad face, then we can just be in touch with those people. So even if it's not saving their world, it's still an early intervention in terms of being in contact. But me for once, let's say 2 months and we're still in this situation, will this be enough? And I don't know. So it's a very, very important subject, because obviously everyone is taking this differently. Some people still love it and feel it's a honeymoon. Some people are already affected.
Yeah, and it was something we learned from the Rich One Foundation. Was an interesting point that they brought up, is that in the beginning of this, it's kind of like a honeymoon phase. Everyone is posting their workouts from home. They are doing whatever. People are a little bit thrilled by the situation, so to say. And what the Rich One Foundation said is that they don't expect any particular increase in cases of mental health issues right now. But what they expect is that when this honeymoon phase subsides and the people go, this becomes normal. That's when they anticipate that we will see more cases in this. What are your thoughts in general, Fiona, on the mental health side of things?
So yeah, I mean, obviously there's a number of different things. It is difficult being remote. The HR team, kind of like Heidi said, we are very, very much, kind of my HR ops team, they're working very closely with individuals, with managers. They are just actually contacting people, kind of checking in, having chats, like they would in the office, but, there needs to be a little bit more of an effort of actually contacting people, setting up calls, or just reaching out to them. So there's that. We do have an employee assistance program set up as well. So again, it's reminding people that that's there if they need to speak to a professional. And then we also are a little bit more mindful of people that we know do have kind of pre-existing kind of concerns or issues or anything else there. And so we're just being more aware of that, more focus on some of those people, more focus on that, their managers, and making sure that their managers know how things are going. I mean, it's not a kind of a foolproof way of dealing with things, but there's a lot of different components to that. And just, again, we use different, tools to check in on people and a lot of those types of things. So it's just making sure that we're being very kind of aware and trying to read between the lines of, maybe what people are messaging on, kind of some of the group chats and those types of things. And yeah, just a lot more active checking in. The HR team, kind of a number of people, kind of, I think, had the feeling when they were leaving the office that they were going to have a lot more time to focus and get things done. We were just joking today when we had our team call and we're all having lunch together virtually, that has not been the case. We are now, kind of even busier than we were previously. But, that's kind of the time that we're in right now.
Fiona, you're mentioning tools. Because even if it's done with all good intentions, or so we have had yoga in all our locations, and now this yoga is running online. So all our locations are actually doing yoga together, and we as well see lots of engagement, participation. We have all our location chats, we have newly opened chats, we have the ComeOn care foundation, we have Instagram, we have Facebook. All of a sudden it becomes a lot. So
a lot
becomes like a little bit not contradictive. Like we realized that counterproductive. Like we've realized that we need to either find like one channel, and maybe that's what you're talking about, or just sort of what we've started to do, like do these send outs on like Wednesdays and Fridays, and to sort of structure it a little bit.
Yes, we in fact
absolutely.
Something which we did is we created a Slack channel which focuses on health and wellness, and we send out quite a few reinforcement messages just to remind people, that it's important for them to keep their morning routine, for them to exercise, and so on and so forth. But we do it initially. I mean, as you said, Heidi, we're like bombarding everybody with a lot of, but we felt that, by channeling the information through one channel and to plan it out and send it out, it doesn't even have to be daily, but it has to be there, and it has to be continuous and consistent. So that's the most important thing. And for us, we've also been checking in with, we've all been checking in with all the employees, the more vulnerable ones, even more so. And I think that is something which is really appreciated, like from the feedback that I get every time I ping somebody. That is what they really appreciate the most, the connection.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a question from Facebook, from the Facebook audience as well, that's kind of touching on this as well, which is interesting. Do you have any suggestions on how to motivate yourself during these times? How do you motivate yourself and focus better? Like you talked a little bit about there, Mary. What would you guys' tips be on this? How do you keep yourself from not sliding into a negative spiral of procrastination?
Look, we're all humans, and we're all going to have our meltdowns. I've had a few meltdowns, I must say. But what has really helped me is in the morning, when I wake up, I do a 20-minute HIIT workout, which I have I've subscribed to on YouTube. And that really gets my day started. They also have this personal trainer does a session for children as well. So that's my warm up. I do it with the children, and then I do my 20 minutes. And that really sets my mind, to the rest of my routine and the rest of my day. Obviously, you try to plan the day as best as you can, but things do happen in your day as they would normally happen when you're in the office. So many times I go into the office and I say, this is what I'm going to do today, and I do none of that. So
yeah.
But we are human. Yes, it's important to try and get into a routine and to try and motivate ourselves and our team, because we have more of a responsibility. I always say our roles, probably Heidi and Fiona would agree with me. We're like, we have the responsibility, the motherly responsibility, right, or the parent responsibility to the organization. So yes, I mean, we do have to also think of ourselves and take care of ourselves. That's very important. But the routine, the routine you kickstart your day with in the morning makes all the difference.
That's true, and I agree. And just adding on to that as well, I think the other thing, the other thing that I found is, I mean, generally, I'm a glass half full, kind of type of person. But I think, kind of through this, there's so many, kind of horrible situations that you hear about, and there's so many challenges and kind of frustrations and everything else that, I don't tend to dwell on those. Certainly, obviously, not ignoring that and living in the world of denial. But I think on the other side, we're also seeing so many positives, and still, kind of, I keep calling them silver linings, with my team, and whether that be silver linings in relation to work, and making sure that then, we do openly discuss, kind of, so what's been the win, kind of the day, what's been your win this week. We talk about the frustrations as well, but we talk about the wins. What are the silver linings that we're finding as a company, but even just across, kind of humanity at the moment as well. Kind of don't ignore, that there are a lot of positives that are coming out of this as well.
Great. We have some feedback actually from at the same time our IT genie Andrew is running some polls on the subjects that and he's saying that most responders feel that employers are doing what they can to maintain the mental health of their employees, but it needs improvement. Interesting feedback. We also have another poll that's saying all voters who respond do not believe that remote working will become the new standard, but they do expect to see a significant increase. So two interesting points there as well. If I may add as well on the productivity side of things, I got a really interesting tip from a friend. I was doing another podcast the other week, and they were talking about accountability buddies. So to set up kind of like weekly goals for yourself, together with a friend who also does the same thing, and in the end of the week, you as accountability buddies, you go through each other's goals and see if you have managed to complete them and stay on track. I thought that was a lovely way of doing things as well.
That's nice one.
Yeah, even better. So a shout out to Alex, my friend, who told me this the other day. Heidi, what about you? What do you think on the motivation side of things? How do you avoid the procrastination? This is the big thing. How do you avoid?
Me personally, I continue. So I'm not in Malta where I normally are. I'm in Sweden now. So I continue. I go out every morning an hour, and I listen to an audiobook that has nothing to do with the situation. Takes me to a different world to sort of, this is a bit of a meditation, I guess. Get out, get some fresh air, etc. And I understand that I cannot do all the priorities that I used to do because obviously our reality has changed. And as I said before, we're in the here and the now at the moment, just to sort of trying to deal with everything that comes in, everything from logistics to continue hiring the 50 open positions that we have, sending laptops, the sorting of those sort of things. And so in terms of goal settings, pinpoint the most important thing that I have to do today. If I get that done, I can feel like, okay, I was really productive, because with that comes obviously so many other things, the smaller things on the side. What I have to work on is obviously to sort of, in the very same house, try to be these two different people. So when I'm actually closing down my computer, I try to sort of swap into a different mode. But that's not super easy. So I would probably need to sort of start looking at 30 minutes before I go to sleep, wind down a little bit so I don't sort of continue chewing old thoughts and continue working while I'm sleeping, etc. But to lower my constant high expectations on myself and at the team, on the team, and sort of understand that this is a very odd situation, as long as we're moving forwards.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. We're gonna start wrapping things up a little bit soon. Let's see. We have another question from Anonymous. Let's take that just as the last question today, guys. Question from a Facebook viewer. What about changing work conditions? Are working hours still relevant for non-customer focused tasks like customer care or payments? Isn't it more important to get work done and problem solved? Is home office the first step away from an 8-hour workday? It's a very interesting question. The hot potato.
It depends on how much you're actually communicating with I have different days when I just sit in video calls, and then obviously we have to be available at the same time. Maybe
so this is an overall question, right? It's like is output more important than input? Also, is the output more important than the amount of hours? Let's say, is the amount of hours irrelevant? Is the only thing that matters the output?
I think, Pierre, the question here actually goes to, is output more important than collaboration? And in my opinion, it's not, because you can definitely get better output through collaboration. And in reality, it's not I am not a particular believer in you have to work an 8 to 5 job. You know, I do have a mindset which allows flexibility in those hours, but I think there needs to be a number of core hours during the day where people are talking to each other, collaborating with each other, working together still virtually. But they still need to be virtually present during the same time, because if you get people working at all hours of the day, then it's much harder for them to collaborate.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, totally agree with you, Murray. It's not about hours that someone's actually working, but it is about what they deliver. But it is about the core and the overlap and collaboration.
Yeah. And it's also probably the amount of team members. If you have an organization of over 500, or if you are 5 people that have a very loose, I can contact this guy anytime and he will sign the contract, then that's obviously not a problem, because you have a leniency within that little family, whereas some kind of frameworks need to be set in a large organization. If you want speed to it, if you want delays with half a day or a day, then that's perfectly fine. If it's retention and people's well-being and not speedy output that you're looking at, then it depends on what you're looking at. But for us, it wouldn't. We could not allow for choose whatever hours you want entirely. We have core hours that we need to be available for each other.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I think that topic in its own right is another 1 hour discussion as well. Output versus hours and things like this, because the old culture was very much like you stamp in, you stamp out, and that decides the amount of hours, decides how much work you have done. But going into the digital world, it's becoming a little bit muddled between what is the right way to do. Yeah. Interesting.
I still remember working in investment banking, and there were people that used to be asleep at their desks just to physically be at work still, exactly. To try and show that they were working harder. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. So shall we wrap this very interesting discussion up? I have one last question for each one of you. What would you say is your top number 1 tip of working from home? It can be anything.
Ooh, difficult. Come on, girls, you start.
Okay. All right, I'll start with a nice easy one. It's the actual physical setup. Make sure that your physical space in terms of chair, desk, lighting, computer, monitor, everything that you've got, it's comfortable and it's what you need in order to be able to do your job. That's one of the super simple ones.
You would not like to see my official desktop moving around. But yes,
I think Fiona just made a very, very good point. I think just to add on to that, what the first tip I gave on that Monday morning after we all started working from home was video call. Put your videos on. It's the closest thing you can get to actually being in the same room with somebody. So that's my top tip.
I have adjusted weekly, hourly calls and split them up to stand-ups, 15 minutes every morning, shorter session, just check in, video obviously, but. And I'm trying to reach out to, if this is a goal that I'm setting for myself, 5 people every week that I'm just reaching out to as I would in the normal office or in my normal, 4 weeks ago, just without booking a meeting, just to sort of, hi, do you have 2 minutes? Can we just have a, check in? How are things? The spontaneity, keep that. Everything, just because we're sitting here sort of planning things, we should still try to be a bit spontaneous.
Yeah, the scrums is a great one. We're doing that with the full management team every morning. We have our morning scrum meeting, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, we do it too with the HR team, and it works really well. Sometimes just to say hello and just to see each other's faces, but it does work really well in saying this is what we're going to be doing every day, and Oh,
And the other one is have your pets on the video as well, because
Exactly. That was exactly what my number one tip was going to be. Get yourself a dog, and you can stay home for years. It's no problem at all, actually. Yeah.
We've all had our cats join all of our meetings as well.
Yeah. I think he's gonna get tired of me soon, bugging him all the time. So
there's one thing that I would like to sort of think a little bit, but this might be for the Spinola group or the HR Connect group. Like, obviously, like now we're putting a lot of focus on this, and as we said, like we're hammering our staff with all good intentions of how to stay healthy. What if actually the office should be the place where this is not brought up that much? Like this is a place you go for regularity. Like our ways of working, apart from the actual workstation, hasn't really changed. We're still working with the same things. Our goals are still the same. Our revenue is still the same, or comes in from the same channels. So, like, is there any sort of mental health in terms of when I'm working, everything is just as usual? So, but that's just a little droplet of discussions for future.
Yeah. Guys, we can stay on here for hours. It's always lovely to talk to you guys. We have two more polls actually that that Andrew has contacted here. One of them is saying that most respondents have stated that their current situation has increased their stress significantly in their lives. Interesting. Whether that being due to working from home, or whether it being due to the crisis in general. Yeah, parents.
Or hopefully just like a temporary thing. Like I probably haven't been this stressed at all. But I see the light in the tunnel, like when things calm down, when things are back in routines, when we have looked at our cost reliefs, like when things, everything that the ripple effect that has come with this, when the ripples start sort of slowing down, hopefully we should be able to sort of
I think as well, when on the downside, I do see this as a downside of remote working. It's very difficult to shut off, to close down at the end of the day. So you never stop. The weekend comes, you kind of, your office is in your home is in your office. There's no...
It is. That's where discipline, we've asked a lot of our employees, what are the key things that they've learned so far. And it's about routines and structure and discipline, as Murray was saying, starting your day, whether it be with exercise, whatever your normal routine is, times that you start and times that you finish, times that you break for lunch, and having that routine and sticking to it. You have to. Otherwise, it's just one big blur of work, life, everything.
What could also be stressful, I think, Pierre, is that people adapt to change in different ways. There are those who adapt really quickly and they get into the routine quickly, and others who take their time. And it's only been 3 weeks since a lot of us have been working remotely. It hasn't been that long, and some people might still need to get into that routine, and that's okay. But it's important that if they see themselves at a point where they are more stressed out because of the situation, and because of the fact that they are working remotely, then it's important for them to set their routines as we've spoken already before.
We're stressing Pierre out. That's one of the things that we've learned, like shorter but more concise meetings.
It's been amazing.
Fine when we're back in Malta and we can get it out.
Okay, a final insight. Users believe their productivity has increased a lot or a little. So the panel was pretty spot on in that regard. The productivity seems to have gone up for the viewers as well in general. So that's really good to hear. Guys, I would like to thank you all so much for doing this. This has been super interesting. I hope we can do more of this in the future. I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. Thank you for all the interesting questions that we got as well. And I'm sorry that we couldn't answer all of them. Hopefully we can do another session in a couple of weeks and see where we stand then. So guys, Murray, Heidi, Fiona, thank you all so much, and we will be in touch soon, of course. And thank you everyone as well for tuning in today. Have a lovely rest of the day, everybody, and stay safe, take a shower in the morning, do your 20-minute HIIT workout in the morning. That's what we learned today, and become even more productive. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Pierre.